welcome to the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights and user experience pros that you trust. So, a couple weeks ago, I discovered this really interesting article on Medium, and it was all about the similarities between the process of composing and arranging music and creating really good user experience designs. Wow, that's really cool. It was a really thoughtful piece. And so, of course, what did I do? I had to reach out to the author to hear a little bit more about this. The author is a one Evan Dabbs of the Dallas Fort Worth area. Yeah. And I discovered this really interesting story he has about starting a career in music and music education, and then transitioning to something more like user experience. So really cool. And he's here to tell you all about it today on the podcast. Welcome to the show, Evan.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And first of all, I'm blushing. Wow, like, dang. Thank you so much for all the praise.
Oh, sure thing. I mean, fascinating article. Shared it on LinkedIn. Like, wow, this is, and I mean, just the double diamond and everything. Just really a really nice comparison. So good stuff. So,
Thanks.
so here we are.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So let's talk music to start. Right. So
Yeah.
you have been a music educator, a musician, probably a far better drummer than I ever hoped to be. So tell us about how you got into music and your journey.
Sure. I mean, I kind of got into it like I think a lot of kids do. I started in middle school, like middle school band, and just kind of kept going at it. It was my outlet back in high school and like where I met all my friends. Like I'm still best friends with guys I went to the sixth grade percussion class with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I just kind of kept going to it. I loved it, and I went to music school twice. And I started teaching because, of course, I wasn't actually good enough to make money performing. Because who is? Um, and I really loved.
And musicians that do it.
Yeah, spoilers, guys. Yeah, spoilers. Um, but I love teaching, and it was great to kind of do different aspects of it. I was just a lesson teacher, and I kind of did some teching for different programs in the area, and been a full-time band director for the past 4 years. And just along the way, I got so many different aspects of music and education, and got to do so many different cool and interesting things. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. It's just kind of one of those things I love doing, and I loved teaching others how to do it. So it worked out for me.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the pandemic happened. Now, did that have any impact on your thoughts about continuing what you were doing or making the change, or what's the story there?
Yeah, so that was I don't know if anyone that will listen to this has ever tried to teach music remotely via
Oh my
Zoom.
goodness. Yeah.
It just doesn't, like, don't get me wrong, it's a great program and all, but it does not work, right, fundamentally. And so the school I was teaching at had something like 80% of their kids stay at home most of last year. And
Okay.
so it was just really, really difficult to make things happen. So we had kids like come in before school and did big stretched out rehearsals, and we made it work, and it was all right. But still, we maybe saw half of our kids at any given rehearsal. And it was really disappointing because, you spent so much time and energy investing in the kids and the program, and making it successful. And then it's like, well, suddenly, act of God happens, and like we can't do what we were building towards. And so that was really disappointing and frustrating. But what ended up happening was we used all these tools, like Smart Music was one, and Canvas, and all these other things that were meant to like help teachers out. And like it was just great, and this was so cool. And what I found was I was really frustrated by a lot of them because it's just not the same. And I was like, this isn't it. Like, there's got to be somebody out there that can like fix these things, make these better, or really help the experience for teachers and students.
Right.
Come to find out, that's a whole career path option. And so I got into this boot camp program through SMU and started doing some other projects and this internship, and just really kind of fell in love with it because, as I mentioned in that article, there's a lot of similarities, and I was finding all these connections in ways I wasn't expecting to when I first just started kind of exploring and tinkering with all this. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's really fascinating. And now I'm just trying to make that full time, see what else is out there. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. But yeah, COVID direct impact on what I was doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just a couple of fascinating angles there. I think at least like with the um, doing home from or doing school from home. I have three school aged kids myself, and you think about the subjects like math and English, things like that, which are more easily accommodated, I think, at home.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of something like band, right, which just doesn't really work so well.
Yeah. And that was exactly what we were seeing. Like our kids were doing all right in some of their other classes. I mean, some were really struggling because of X, Y, and Z for sure. But yeah, band was just had to be totally completely different because it's like you can't go on a Zoom call and go, all right, guys, three, two, one,
Yeah.
and I remember we tried that one time in like a class like in March, right after we were online, and that was an immediate teaching moment. We're like, all right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. We're gonna figure out another plan here. So yeah, it was just yeah, it was a big monkey wrench for sure in our plans.
Too funny. Now the other point is working with tools like GarageBand and Audacity.
Yeah,
Yes, the opportunity is enormous for these music uh, interfaces for
yeah.
better user experience, I must say.
And that's kind of what's been interesting is going back through like all the different programs like Audacity, GarageBand, some of the notation programs I've used, some of the other DAWs that I've used, and it's been like, oh yeah, this is a cool idea. I see why this works or why this doesn't. And you start kind of analyzing what's unique or interesting about that. And then now I'm actually been teaching this music theory class, IB music,
Yeah,
through the school, and that's all about letting kids compose and letting kids write and explore and arrange. So that's been kind of cool to showcase some of that to these students too, and kind of
yeah.
get them musically digitally literate as well. So yeah.
Interesting. So were there other potential career paths that you were interested in seeking, or was it just like did the did the light bulb go off and this is where I want to go?
It there was a little bit of tinkering and kind of exploring a few other options. I have some buddies that are former teachers that are in real estate or sales or a few other things, and so I kind of looked into that a little bit, just because like, oh, you guys seem happy. You're making more money than you were as a teacher, and that seems like you're doing well for yourself. So why not? I'll kind of explore that. And what I found was like, I don't really want to do that. Like I have a hard time selling to people sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like,
Sure.
yeah, this house sucks, man. Like I wouldn't buy it. Like I couldn't do that. So I realized like that
Let me
wasn't
level with you. Let me tell you the truth
good.
about this house.
The roof is crap. The foundation suck. Like don't do this. So yeah, I couldn't really see myself in those kind of roles. So then once I started looking more into the UX specific stuff, it was cool because it was like, yeah, this is the problem solving and this is the collaboration and it's all those things that I really enjoyed about my job. And ultimately it's empathizing too, right? And that was what sold me on it. It was like, oh yeah, like my role as a teacher is not just to dump knowledge in their brains, right? It's like making that relationship happen, knowing what they need, and then reading all the stuff about UX, and it's like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
cool. That's it, man. So from then it was done. That was pretty much a done deal, I think, after that.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. So you're leaning a little bit into some of what you shared in the article. So tell us a little bit about the premise of
Yeah. So going through the boot camp, it was a lot of different classes that I was kind of taking notes on. And I was like, would be taking notes and be like, yeah, okay, sure, obvious. Like, yeah, that would be the next step. That makes total sense. Totally, totally, totally. And then kind of looking up and realizing that I was the only one thinking about this from the perspective of music education. And we would break off into groups and whatever. And I'd talk about, yeah, it would be just like doing X, Y, and Z and just kind of getting some, some of that look. And it was like, maybe I have a different perspective or unique perspective on this. So I started just kind of jotting some notes down about it. But a lot of it was really interesting to me was the process framework of this all and saying like, okay, if I have my UX process and it's a double diamond or however you want to kind of define it, you look at all the potential options and then you kind of have to filter in and look at the small details and then you have to go back out and look at how to design that, and then eventually you have to ship the thing, right? So you have this narrowing and widening of focus. And I was like, yeah, that's music. Like I, take a piece of music, and if I'm, if I'm a classically trained guy and looking at sheet music, I'll read the whole piece down and I say, this was bad, this was bad, this is going to be weird. Mark it all up, and you practice those little chunks, and you do all the fine little details, and then you have to build it back together, and you work on those transitions between stuff. And eventually, what do? You ship it to your users, right? In this case, the audience. And so I just really liked the parallels of that, and started digging in on exactly what was cool, and how this like framework even kind of looks the same, right? The double diamond versus what I kind of sketched out in the article about the hourglass kind of shape of music performance, if you will,
Yeah.
which we've used with students in a few other places. But yeah, it was really interesting kind of exploring that. And yeah, the feedback from it has been incredible. Apparently, I thought 4 people would read this article, and it would just be for me to be like, yeah, this is cool. And it has totally blown me away, the response I've gotten from different folks all over. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really cool. It speaks a bit to what I really like about people coming into either the insight space or the design space with from a different background, right? So they bring this different experience to the table and draw some of those connections, and it makes for some great sort of outside in ideas as well. So really cool. So
sure.
welcome to the fold.
Thank you. Good to be
so
here.
so what's next for you then?
Well, right now, so I'm working on just a couple projects, just a couple small things, and kind of looking for that first full time role. Really, I had an internship that I just wrapped up. You know, spending all day, every day on LinkedIn and putting out lots of applications, and have a few interviews here and there that I'm trying to get going. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I have a few more articles that I've since that one people seem to respond well to, that I'm kind of writing in the same space. The next one will kind of be about the experience of the applause break, which
The applause
I
break.
love playing. So, at the end of a song, there's that half second before the applause kicks in.
Yep.
Um, or that moment is so like special and cool to me. But I was thinking about like how that relates to an app or service or whatever. Like when you get done with the thing, there's that half moment of, oh, this worked. Yay. And then you get to go about your day, whatever. But that's that moment you get to cling to
Yeah.
before the performance is done, or before your interaction is really done, that I just think is cool. I talk to my students about that all the time. I made sure to make that moment special in performances, and I think that's maybe what we kind of have to focus on as designers, as researchers, insights, whatever, to kind of make sure that users have the same thing. So, anyways, probably
Yeah.
give too much of my article away. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
edit some of that out. Nobody.
That's really interesting. I haven't really thought about that before. Just like that tiny moment of satisfaction, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. Is
What you
that
just experienced. Yeah.
that little bit of joy, right? That little bit
Yeah.
of whatever emotion you're communicating in a performance. Even I went to the movies last week for the first time since this all like started, and it was like the credits rolled, and I was like, I saw a movie in a theater. What a cool experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways,
That's
same
really
thing.
cool. I think people that listen to this podcast will now be cognizant for a while of that little moment.
I hope so, man. That moment is so sacred to me. That is such a cool moment in anything I get to go see or do, for sure. Before
Yeah.
the right before the real world creeps back in, right?
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Exactly. Cool. Awesome. Okay. So this is a podcast, right? I don't know if you listen to other podcasts or consume blogs or whatever, but as you think about the media that is important to you, either for inspiration or enjoyment, personally or professionally, what comes to mind?
So I do love me some podcasts, and it's weird because I'm commuting a lot less these days. So I listen to far fewer of them, because like
Right.
I just that was the
You're out of
hard
time.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Um, but I do love me some podcasts. So I like UX Cake was UX one that I really enjoyed. I
Oh,
think that
wow.
one might be on hiatus, or might be wrapped up now, but I enjoyed that one. Design MBA is another good one that I'm really enjoying. Janil Dalal runs that one, and he interviews some cool people, and it's just an entertaining kind of podcast host. I like him.
Cool.
Um, I also like Becoming Us with Brene Brown. I think it's the title of it. That's kind of a fun one. She has a real interesting perspective and a real human touch to her interviews. I really enjoy.
Sure.
Um, the coolest thing I've checked out lately, and I'm so slowpoke to this, is the Netflix show Abstract Art and Design. Right,
Oh
that
yeah,
show
yeah.
is so good. Oh man, have you checked that one out?
I haven't checked it out yet either. No, I'm even slower than you.
Jump on that. Oh my god, it's so cool. I'm
Okay.
like, those people are fascinating, and it's cool because so many of them are like, there's a few that are like, oh, I designed this thing and it's kind of specific, but pretty much all of them are like these cross platform, cross idea kind of things. Like it's a artist who's also an engineer and an architect, or
Yeah.
Neri Oxman is phenomenally cool. Like, man, I want to be her when I grow up. It's phenomenal, cool stuff. Because she's doing building structures and things out of like uh like chitin, whatever, like bug, like skeletons, exoskeleton kind of stuff.
Oh wow.
Super fascinating and super beautiful. And anyways, very, very cool stuff. Highly recommend. It's also like the one I can point to now because there's the product designer from Instagram has an episode, so I can be like, hey guys, this is what I'm trying to do these days. One day I'll be half as successful as he is, but that's it. So it's a nice, easy explainer for all my music friends. You're like, no, what do you do exactly? Like, what do you?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, they're gonna be my things that I check out most often. Yeah,
Uh, I appreciate the records. I got some good stuff to check out now. Thank you for that.
check it out.
All right. Well, this is the Rock and Roll Research Podcast. Don't let that guide your answers to this question. You got to be as honest as possible. But this really is the most important question for me, right?
Okay.
And you with your music background, I'm really curious about your answers. So it's the classic. You're stranded on a desert island. Got three records of your choosing. Keep you company for the rest of your days, Evan. What are those records?
So, okay, I had to really, really sit with it. This was the hardest thing I've done in a while, was figuring out these three albums because there's too much out there. There's so many good things. So I have two very personal answers, and then a third that I'm just going to say is going to be the rotational album that I would ideally. It just is the moment of the album of the moment. Okay, so the
Okay,
two that
it's Slayer, right? It's Slayer. I mean, I don't mean to.
um
I don't want to jump the gun, but anyway, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
uh
ahead.
listen, I do love me some Slayer. There's a time and a place for that, for
Right.
sure. Desert Island,
Somebody's
no.
going to say Slayer at some point.
Somebody will.
I'm just going to
Sorry,
go
it's not going to be me.
crazy. I'm going to go crazy. But it won't be today. Okay, so Evan, what do you
Okay.
got?
All right. So the first one is actually one of the first albums I ever had as a kid. And it's Like Minds, which is a jazz album with Gary Burton, Pat Metheny, Chick Corea, Roy Haynes. Phenomenal,
Yeah,
phenomenal jazz
very
album.
nice. Very nice. Love me some
Yeah.
Roy Haynes for sure.
Yeah. What an incredible drummer, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't realize, as a middle schooler, I was totally oblivious to jazz. But like now I go back and listen to that. I'm like, man, that dude is phenomenal. They all
Yeah.
are, obviously. But anyway, so
Super cool.
that's one, just
I like it.
very, very, very Homerist pick of me. I realize. Another, and this is kind of gaming the system, but because I like so many different like styles and genres or whatever, the Golden Record on the Voyager probe. They released that as an album like
Oh,
2
interesting.
years ago. Yeah, it was actually the first vinyl album I ever bought. I bought. My wife bought it for me for Christmas that year. It was great. But it's great because it's like 4-ish hours of music. So I figured that's plenty of playtime. So
Yeah.
that, and get different styles and kind of change it up a little bit.
What's
Um,
on it? I haven't heard that before.
so it's they try to do as many different world styles as possible. Like aliens, hey, check out all this cool stuff. It's
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
whatever. So they got like Chuck Berry on there, which is pretty great, and they have some classical music. I think Bach gets on there twice, if I remember, but also
Okay.
just a bunch of world music, and
Yeah.
different like field recordings and ethnomusicology stuff, and a bunch of different sounds, and it's just endlessly cool and fascinating. They also opened it with like a songs of Earth kind of thing, so they have I think like 120 languages saying welcome to all the aliens, like hello from Earth, like in all the languages, and
Huh.
then just different field recordings and different sounds and like whale songs and stuff, which
Oh,
is
that's fascinating. That's so
it's
cool.
a very experiential album to listen to. It's very cool. But anyways, so that's one because I get to listen to a lot
Yeah,
of different stuff and it's super long. And I don't
love
know.
it.
If I'm stranded on a desert island, I might just want to say hello to all these people in all these languages. That might cheer me up, you know. So
Fair. That's
so I
fair.
had pretty good about that one. And then the other album of the moment is my buddy from when I was at Arizona State getting my master's degree. He started a band and in a band for a while, and they were touring and doing great things. So Jared in the Mill, Life We Chose,
Jared in the
great
Mill.
album.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. And they
they
still play?
they they kind of aren't. The lead singer Jared is kind of doing his own project now, and that they're all with him in the studio and on some of the tours, but they kind of all have kind of split. COVID, you know, like
Yeah.
everything else,
Yeah.
of course. But a great sound, great tracks that they do, and yeah, I don't know, just that album really I dig. It's cool. So
Cool. Excellent. Excellent. Well, good choices. Good choices. You've given me a lot of media to discover here in this call, so I really appreciate that. And I really
absolutely,
appreciate you putting together that article on Medium. It was really cool, and it connected us, which is great. And I
yeah,
look forward to the other stuff that you've got coming. So I really appreciate your time, Evan, and let's stay in touch with rock and roll.
thank you.